U.S. economy shrinking 0.3% in the first quarter, significantly weaker than expected, a dramatic turnaround from the fourth quarter of last year.
In early 2025, headlines erupted as Ford Motor Company announced a staggering projected loss of $1.5 billion, an economic gut punch tied directly to newly imposed 25% tariffs on imported light-duty vehicles. But behind the financial headlines is a far more complex reality. What we're witnessing isn't just a single company reeling from economic policy. This is a multi-layered disruption that stretches across North America's industrial base, reverberates through global supply chains, and threatens to derail electric vehicle progress just as it gains momentum. President Trump's push for economic nationalism, meant to bring jobs back and reignite domestic manufacturing, is causing ripple effects few anticipated. With retaliatory tariffs from countries like China and rising production costs across the board, companies are being forced to make drastic operational shifts. Ford's decision to withdraw its earnings forecast and halt exports to major markets is only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, an industrial reckoning is unfolding. Before we dive in, if you're into clear, no-fluff breakdowns, hit like and subscribe. It helps more people find this, and we've got more deep dives coming your way. Let's get started. And hidden in the chaos is a consequence that could quietly undermine everything from climate policy to future infrastructure. This story is about more than quarterly losses. It's about how one political move exposed the fragility of a deeply interconnected system, and what that means for the future of transportation, manufacturing, and even the planet. Ford's downward spiral began the moment tariffs were introduced. The 25% levy on imported light-duty vehicles wasn't just a political gesture. It was a direct blow to the company's globally integrated production model. For decades, Ford, like its competitors, had fine-tuned its operations around international supply chains, sourcing components from dozens of countries and assembling vehicles where it made the most financial sense. This approach helped the company remain competitive in both domestic and global markets. But the new tariffs rendered those efficiencies obsolete. By the end of Q1 2025, Ford had withdrawn its full-year earnings guidance and posted a profit of just $473 million, a sharp 65% drop from the same period the year before. Total revenue declined to just over $46 billion, down 5% from the previous year. The market responded immediately. Ford's stock dropped more than 2% in after-hours trading, a clear sign that investors had lost confidence in the company's near-term strategy. Internally, panic set in. To offset rising costs, Ford raised prices on 3 popular models manufactured in Mexico. This wasn't driven by market opportunity, but by necessity. The company's cost structure had been flipped on its head overnight. Worse still, China retaliated with a brutal 145% tariff on imported US vehicles, effectively shutting down Ford's exports to one of its most critical international markets. With those sales gone, the company was forced to adjust its entire global sales and manufacturing strategy on the fly. General Motors wasn't spared either. The company suspended a planned $4 billion stock buyback program and cancelled upcoming investor calls. GM's financial models, built on decades of relatively stable trade policy, were suddenly useless. In this new economic environment, certainty had become a luxury. The automakers weren't simply dealing with losses. They were navigating uncharted waters, where decisions were being made not in boardrooms, but in political offices. That disconnect between policy intent and business impact created a dangerous vacuum, one where long-term planning became nearly impossible. For Ford, the fallout was swift and severe, but it was only the beginning of a much larger crisis unfolding across the continent. While boardrooms scrambled to respond to economic shocks, factory floors across North America were already feeling the heat. In Ingersoll, Ontario, workers at General Motors received a stark internal memo. Delay all major purchases. Prepare for possible layoffs. It wasn't speculation. It was a direct warning that production stoppages could occur within weeks if the tariff situation remained unresolved. And for some plants, the slowdown had already begun. Windsor and Etobicoke facilities remained operational, but just barely. The atmosphere inside was tense. Supply chain delays, fluctuating part availability, and uncertain pricing made daily operations a gamble. The uncertainty wasn't just about how many vehicles could be built, it was whether the factories would even be open the following month. In some cases, plants had to alternate shifts or reduce hours, not due to lack of demand, but because parts simply weren't arriving on time. And this wasn't limited to Canada. In the US, suppliers in Michigan and Ohio began reporting cancelled orders and delayed payments. Many of these businesses operate on razor-thin margins and depend on predictable schedules from major automakers. A sudden disruption, even for a few weeks, can result in cash flow crises, staff reductions, or worse, permanent closure. But perhaps the most unexpected fallout came in the form of union division. For decades, labour movements across Canada and the US shared a common goal: protect jobs and advocate for workers. Now, that solidarity is cracking under pressure. While Canadian unions publicly condemned the tariffs, citing devastating impacts on cross-border employment, the United Auto Workers, UAW, in the US voiced full support. UAW President Shawn Fain described the move as a long overdue corrective to decades of factory closures in places like Lordstown, Ohio. The contrast was stark. One union saw a policy lifeline, the other saw a threat to its very survival. This schism is more than symbolic, it's operational. Cross-border labour collaboration has long been a pillar of North American manufacturing. That shared advocacy helped negotiate trade deals, coordinate strikes, and shape policy. But now, that foundation is eroding. Friction between US and Canadian labour leaders is growing, fueled by diverging national priorities and economic realities. Political decisions made in Washington are being felt most acutely not in DC, but in union halls and factory break rooms across the continent. The emotional toll on workers is profound. Those who lived through the COVID-19 shutdowns are now reliving a different kind of disruption, one that feels equally destabilising, but this time entirely man-made. Amid the noise surrounding tariffs and traditional manufacturing, a quieter, but potentially more damaging crisis is taking shape. The transition to electric vehicles, EVs, a pillar of both corporate strategy and national climate policy, is being threatened in ways few anticipated. The problem isn't demand, it's the supply chain. Electric vehicles rely heavily on specialised components: lithium-ion batteries, high-voltage electric motors, silicon chips, and rare earth metals. Most of these are sourced from Asia, particularly China, South Korea, and Japan. As the tariff war intensifies, these components are becoming entangled in the broader trade conflict. While the initial focus of the tariffs was on finished vehicles, the scope has already started creeping into parts and raw materials. And for EVs, that's catastrophic. Several North American suppliers that form key nodes in the EV ecosystem, battery plants, electronics hubs, and semiconductor partners, have reported stalled investment plans and reduced output forecasts. Projects that were announced with great fanfare in 2023 and 2024 are now being paused, quietly shelved or scaled back, not because the technology doesn't work, but because the economics no longer do. Automakers are now faced with painful decisions. Either absorb the rising costs of importing components or delay their EV production timelines. Some are doing both. And while luxury EV models might still go forward, the mass market offerings, the ones essential for widespread adoption and decarbonisation, are being pushed out of reach. This creates a dangerous domino effect. Delays in EV production mean fewer vehicles on the road. That slows consumer adoption. That, in turn, impacts infrastructure development, charging stations, grid upgrades, and support networks. Cities and states that planned for EV expansion now face a shortfall in vehicles and resources. Even worse, federal and state EV incentives tied to vehicle pricing and availability may become moot, as fewer cars qualify for tax credits due to price hikes and limited inventory. And behind all of this lies the looming spectre of climate targets. Every delay in EV rollout translates to more gasoline-powered cars remaining on the roads longer. 1 year of delay can result in millions of additional tons of carbon emissions. It's not just an industrial issue, it's an environmental setback with global implications. Ironically, the very policies meant to restore economic strength may be undermining the energy transition meant to secure environmental stability. It's a collision of priorities that no automaker or government has fully reconciled. Beyond Ford, the real damage is systemic. The global supply chains that have defined the modern auto industry are under siege. Built over decades to optimize speed, cost, and efficiency, these networks weren't designed for political volatility. Now they're being tested on every front, logistically, financially, and ideologically. Companies are relocating production facilities not based on business logic, but in response to shifting policy. Stellantis, for instance, has begun moving portions of truck production from Mexico back to the US, not because it's more efficient or profitable, but because it reduces exposure to tariffs. These decisions may provide short-term relief, but they come at a long-term cost. Re-engineering a complex multi-country supply chain isn't something that happens overnight. It takes years, billions in capital, and a complete overhaul of logistics, workforce planning, and technology infrastructure. Suppliers, especially in Canada and Mexico, are now caught in a storm they didn't create. Many of these companies operate on tight margins and depend on predictable volume commitments from automakers. As those commitments dry up or shift unexpectedly, small and mid-sized vendors are left scrambling. Some have frozen hiring, others are laying off workers. Still others have cancelled investments in new equipment or halted expansion of production lines entirely. Even well-capitalised manufacturers aren't immune. Across the board, auto stocks are underperforming. Investors are recalibrating their expectations as old assumptions, stable trade agreements, consistent parts sourcing, predictable pricing, no longer hold. Risk is being repriced in real time. The USMCA agreement, once hailed as a foundation for borderless North American manufacturing, now feels like a paper shield. Tariffs and retaliation measures have revealed just how fragile the framework really is when exposed to shifting political winds. It raises an unsettling question. If trade agreements can be overridden this easily, what's the point of long-term regional integration? Operational chaos is only part of the picture. Strategic planning is also breaking down. Automakers can't confidently set production targets, vehicle launch dates, or pricing strategies when their input costs change monthly due to political decisions. The effects ripple out: project delays, halted R&D, slower innovation cycles. Suddenly, just-in-time manufacturing, once a hallmark of efficiency, becomes a vulnerability instead of a strength. What's emerging is a fragmented version of the industry, where production decisions are reactive, pricing is unstable, and long-term investment is increasingly risky. For consumers, this translates to higher prices, fewer vehicle choices, and longer wait times. For the broader economy, it means a foundational sector is operating without a reliable blueprint. Global integration was once the secret to the auto industry's success. Now, without thoughtful adaptation, it could be its greatest liability. This moment isn't just about Ford or even the auto industry. It's a case study in how quickly political actions can unravel decades of industrial planning. And it's exposing a truth few want to admit: our economies are more fragile than we thought. Governments now face an impossible balancing act. Push too hard on national interests and they disrupt the industries they aim to protect. But lean too heavily on global cooperation and they risk political backlash. Either way, the cost is high. The climate stakes raise the pressure even further. Electrification of transport is no longer optional, it's essential. But delays in production and infrastructure mean delays in reducing emissions. Each factory shutdown, each stalled battery plant, pushes decarbonisation timelines further out. And the environment can't wait. Still, there's a narrow path forward. This crisis may force automakers and governments to rethink industrial policy. Regional supply chains might become more resilient. Collaboration across borders may become more thoughtful. If policymakers learn to coordinate trade with climate strategy, this could be a turning point. But time is short. Every month of confusion and contraction makes recovery harder. And for many workers, suppliers, and consumers, there's no margin for error. What began as a tariff dispute has evolved into a broader reckoning. The decisions made in the next year won't just determine the fate of Ford or GM. They'll shape how we build our economies, protect our environment, and define the future of mobility. The Ford crisis shows us that industry, labour, climate, and geopolitics are no longer separate conversations. They're all colliding, now. The auto sector is simply the first battleground. If North America can navigate this moment, aligning national interests with global realities, there's hope for a smarter, more sustainable industrial strategy. But if not, we risk falling into deeper fragmentation, where costs rise, progress slows, and trust evaporates. This isn't just about where cars are made, it's about what kind of future we choose to build, and whether we can build it together. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment, I'd love to hear what you think.